This cycle's been the most rotational by far. This is my third cycle, and this cycle's been rotational with liquidity, with opportunities, with chains, with different markets that you can trade.
All these ETFs, etc., giving some market cap growth to Bitcoin. It's not going to rotate into alt. It can't.
Exactly.
So we've seen like the big catalysts in, the last 6 to 12 months mainly be things to do with regulation in the US, presidential election, also some geopolitical conflicts. How much of your focus when it comes to your trading and your investing is focused on the macro versus like actually in the trenches, is what we say, looking for those altcoin gems? Alrighty guys, welcome back to another episode of Tapping Into Crypto. We're joined by a familiar face and a friend of the show, Sam Green, aka Greeny. Greeny, welcome to Tapping Into Crypto, or welcome back.
Thanks guys, great to be back.
Mate, it's been about 6 months since we had you on, and a lot's happened since then. We've got a new studio.
Yeah, it looks so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks so good.
But listen, last time we kept it sort of meme coin focused. I do want to touch on that later in the show, but kind of want to get your overall thoughts on what's happening in the market. But since then, just what's been happening in life?
Well, I moved to the coast. I got back from traveling overseas last year. It was great. An 8-month honeymoon over in Europe and Africa. Really loved it. Highly recommend to anybody if you get the time to do travel.
It was a pretty cute exchange. You guys actually were in the Colombia at the same time.
Yeah, we were.
Yes, Greeny and I, but we didn't bump into each other.
No,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
But you were there for what, 5 days?
Yeah, I was there for 5 days for a wedding, so that was also really fun. But
That is a ridiculously long way to go for 5 days.
That flight, you can track that flight. It's like the loneliest flight on the globe. It's literally down like south of the globe.
Wait, where did you fly?
From Sydney to
Chile?
Chile.
Yeah, okay. I went Brizzy to Dallas and then to Central America. Mate, there's no quick way to get there.
No.
But mate, good to hear. And of course, we're joined by my good friend Pat.
Oh yeah, hey.
Sorry, I forgot you were there.
That's all right.
But yeah, Greeny, as I said, we're going to get into all things crypto, talking about the market. And then also later in the show, you've got a bit of a mystery purchase that I think is pretty, not so much controversial, but something we haven't heard from in a while. So we're going to dive into that. But
Absolutely.
First of all, since we last saw you, what's been happening with the market and where do we go from here?
Market's really consolidated recently. We obviously, the peak was certainly Trump and inauguration, him launching the meme coin. I think his meme coin obviously extracted a lot of liquidity, really changed investors and traders' mindsets. But then it was the Melania token that really did it in. I think because it was the second token launched within a couple of days, professionally, who even knows if Trump knew about it, those sorts of things that really the market hated. And that really sort of topped Bitcoin, topped the majors, topped the altcoins, and meme coins specifically went all the way down about 80-90% like we've seen. So market's kind of in a really interesting space. Obviously, over the past week or so, we have probably put in a major low, in my opinion, and we're starting to push up towards areas that are important to flip again if we want to maintain bullish bias for the rest of the year.
Yeah, nice. So, what's your strategy at the moment? Has it changed from when we last spoke to you?
Yeah, so last time we spoke, it was heavily meme coin oriented. There was just so much volume, so much liquidity, so much daily opportunities to trade meme coins. Whereas more recently, it's been good to move away from that market, and it's actually gone back to utility. I've been trading a bit more on the low cap side on Solana, looking for utility plays. Been farming a lot of airdrops. A lot of them are free to do. You just got to sign up and just be consistent with your approach, and you can do some pretty crazy things and earn some pretty crazy opportunities. And then still just trading futures, this longing, shorting the market, whether it's scalp trading on lower time frames or swing trading on higher time frames as well.
Yeah. So you got the Greeny trading group, or GTG, GTG.
Yeah, that's.
How's that going? Are people still interested? Are people still trading, or have you found the appetite's diminished a little bit?
Of course, when there's fear in the market, it does fluctuate more. People leave. And my biggest advocate and lesson that I've learned in crypto is honestly the best time to probably stay is when there's blood in the market, when there's red candles, and when there's fear. Because those are the best opportunities for you to learn, to apply some new strategies, and to actually invest, because they give you better opportunities than when it's euphoric. I find so many people come back when the market is greedy, and then they wonder why they're not making any money. And it's because they're not there during the opportunity time. They're coming there during the hype, during the euphoria.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I've got a mate who, sorry, Pap, just to cut you off, but I've got a mate who I basically use as my top indicator for fear and greed.
I've heard about this, mate.
Yeah, I've spoken about him a little bit before because he just told me the other day he sold everything except for Trump. I'm like, interesting, considering he held Bitcoin and ETH and all that.
Yeah.
But the only time he's interested in talking about crypto is when the market's running hot, and then when it's not, he does not want to, doesn't want to hear about it because he's got some skin in the game.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to hear it that his portfolio's down. So yeah, good indicator for maybe that blood in the streets type anecdote.
Yeah, it'd be good to get your take because even like I was watching when that Trump coin launched, I was actually trading. I was in like a few longs that I'd opened on like the Thursday, and I saw that news come out, and I just couldn't believe what I saw on the charts. Even from a technical perspective, it just looked like the plug in the sink got taken out, and just liquidity just got drained out of all my positions. I was like, great. Like a lot of people sort of say, well, that's killed it for meme coins specifically, like the whole Trump coin going live and doing what it did just to show that someone of influence can have that sort of effect on, again, let's call it like a pretty ring-fenced nascent sort of market.
Of course.
Do you feel like that is the sort of nail in the coffin for meme coins at all?
Great question. I definitely think like if you look at the Trump meme coin specifically, there was $1 billion worth of volume in a day. The day that it launched, like that is just absurd. Like nothing has ever happened like that before. So that's one point. It definitely did retract away from sentiment with meme coins. People then started to realize with the Argentina coin as well, like the manipulation, the insider trading, all that sort of stuff really came to fruition. And people were like, well, yeah, I'm done with meme coins. So we have seen a massive shift with the amount of pump fund volume and the amount of tokens that have launched. The graduation rate was sitting always around 2%, which means 98% of the time it's a rug. And that means that a token that's created goes above about 75K market cap. Which even then, like that's so low, so it's extremely risky.
Yeah.
But more recently, it's dipped down to like 0.5%, 1%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? And so that really saw a shift in momentum. People started to leave the market. People got fearful. They're like, oh yeah, the degen side of the market's just left a bit. But over the past week, we've had two massive runners in the trenches again on Solana. We had Poise, which was that sort of variation with
so JD Vance.
JD Vance, that's right. And then over the weekend, we had Routine as well, which was that massive, I don't know if you guys saw it, that Twitter, both originated from Twitter, which is great for meme coins. And very authentic, but it was that Routine video from a guy, I don't know where he is, but it was just like he put his face in an ice bar, like
Is that what that's about?
Rubs banana peel on his face, all that sort of stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, a member in GTG shared it in our Discord at 128K market cap, and it hit 20 million over 2 nights ago. So there's still opportunities, and those sorts of opportunities do bring back sort of meme coin sentiment. But it's just crazy, right? Like crypto can be life changing. You just got to be in the right place.
I like how you touched on like they originated out of like Twitter. Like I never really thought of it from that perspective. I kind of thought everything's on Twitter, but there's a difference between something organically sparking and starting versus someone advertising and smashing it. Absolutely. That I'm doing this at this time, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Seems a lot less chance you're going to get rugged.
Yeah.
What was that coin called? The dude with the ice?
Routine. It's just Routine. Yeah. Yeah. So it's top volume, top performing asset over the past week in the meme coin trenches.
Bro, every time I go on Twitter, I cannot escape that guy. Just him diving into a pool or like slashing his face with cold water. Absolutely ridiculous.
And then on that point, do you feel like the trajectory of altcoin was like sort of destabilized at that point we saw the Trump coin launch? Or do you feel like it may have already happened anyway? And then number two, do you feel like altcoin, like alt season as we know it? Because I know you've probably seen like the charts, like usually it's about 180, 190 days after the halving we see an alt season. We're at like day 300 right now. Like what's your sort of take on that sort of whole dynamic?
Yeah, so much. Hey, like this cycle's been the most rotational by far. Like this is my third cycle. I was around in 2017. I was around in 2021. And this cycle's been rotational with liquidity, with opportunities, with chains, with different markets that you can trade. I definitely think altcoins have suffered because a lot of them were created in 2021. A lot of them ran up hard. They have this overdraft of overhanging like price action that they might never get to again. A classic chart that you can look at is AVAX. It is still putting in lower highs over years. Ethereum against BTC, if you look at that chart, looks absolutely horrible. So altcoin season, it's a difficult question, but BTC dominance is the main reason that we've seen no altcoins really shine, except for like Sui, Solana, Hyperliquid for a period of time, those sorts of plays, if you're in the right market. And there's always going to be those sort of exceptions. But holistically, if you look at altcoins at the moment, you got to wait for BTC dominance to come down. Others' dominance is showing a little weakness, which is anything outside the top 10. So that means altcoins outside the top 10, really. And that's showing a little weakness as well. It's lost a major support line as well over the past couple of weeks. But I do think that altcoins could see a bit of life. It just needs, essentially how that could work is they might dump not as much as Bitcoin if Bitcoin dumps, or if Bitcoin finally consolidates sideways, then that's where altcoins will outperform. But I think the real thesis this cycle has been the adoption of Bitcoin as a global asset, right?
Yeah.
And how much you, me, all of us in this room, plus the people watching, want to probably own Bitcoin for a lot longer than just a couple months as a trade. This is now probably one of the best investments for the next decade, if not multiple decades, that we're sitting here and it's still under 100K. So it's like, okay, that adoption and that global adoption, you've got hedge funds, you've got governments, you've got countries wanting to own as much Bitcoin as possible. That really makes it hard for the utility of altcoins, and a lot of them aren't really utility. They're just kind of hearsay.
Speculative, yeah.
Speculative, exactly.
Yeah.
That makes it hard for altcoins to really shine in a market that's really Bitcoin dominant.
Yeah, because you think about it too, like all these ETFs, etc., giving some market cap growth to Bitcoin, it's not going to rotate into alt. It can't.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah, it's restricted.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, it's a good point.
What about layer ones? Because I think a lot of our listeners, they're not in the trenches like yourself, and they might, hold their Bitcoin and ETH, and then some of the larger layer ones, like we talk about Solana and Sui a little bit. How do you see that sort of ecosystem or that environment playing out this year? And have you got your eye on any ones in particular?
Yeah, so I bought some altcoins during that dip. When BTC dipped to 76K, like Solana was down at 112. Sui, I can't remember the specifics, but it was down about 55-60% from its highs. So I did DCA, only small bags into those sort of plays, because I was like, look, at the end of the day, I'm still a bull here for the rest of the cycle, whether that pushes into 26 or whether it's a little bit shorter than that. And I do think altcoins do see a bit of love, particularly Solana, Sui, those ones that have good TVL, that they do have a business model, that they have on-chain transactions and on-chain volume. Outside just like speculative meme coins, like Solana has a lot going for it, and it's DeFi. Ethereum has massive DeFi as well. It's one of the best sort of Web 2 connections out there, really, when you look at Ethereum and the finance that could be built on there in the future. You look at XRP, it has tremendous sort of connections already in Web 2 banks, those sorts of things. Hyperliquid's seen a lot of volume, whether that runs it back or not, I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, I bought a bit of AVAX as well. Even though the chart looks horrible, I still think like it's one of the most dominant chains for utility, for GameFi, which I do think does come to crypto in the future.
Had an ETF greenlit too.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly. You've got
sorry.
Solana ETF dropping. You've got AVAX. Yeah,
Sui as well this morning.
Sui, yeah. So
Oh, wow.
I think if you put your allocations into the right bags and actually do your research with how they can potentially run up, then I think it's a good opportunity still outside of Bitcoin.
Yeah. And how much do you actually focus on the macro? Because I think we've seen like the big catalysts in, the last 6 to 12 months mainly be things to do with regulation in the US, the presidential election, also some geopolitical conflicts. How much of your focus when it comes to your trading and your investing is focused on the macro versus like actually in sort of the trenches, is what we say, looking for those altcoin gems?
Very important for me. And this is a skill I think I learned over the last 3 cycles. I was actually chatting to a GTG VIP member yesterday, and being able to pick trends is a skill that I've learned over the last 3 cycles. And so a classic one was we stabled up a lot during December through to about early Feb. And that turned out to be a great decision. And then we also timed, not necessarily a massive move, but we timed the bottom a couple of weeks ago where we bought Solana between that 120 and 110 mark. We bought Bitcoin at 76K, those sorts of things. So I value macro a lot because a lot of people don't. And you always want to put yourself ahead of other traders, ahead of the crowd, right? And at the end of the day, it's my day job to know these sorts of things. So yeah, I value a lot of macro news, and a good trader uses technicals. Like I love to chart my meme coins, chart my altcoins, all those sorts of things. But fundamentally is also so important to understand what the macro is doing. Tariffs has been a big thing recently that we've seen, regulation like you spoke about, and understanding global liquidity as well. M2 money supply seems to be increasing this year, which Raoul Paul and a lot of those famous people out there will say, well, traditionally, it's very correlated to Bitcoin performing really well. So yeah, I use a massive range of macro indicators analysis every day, really, to just see what the macro trend is and how that will actually apply to crypto.
Yeah, absolutely.
See, macro is not boring.
Yeah, no, I mean, when you talk about it, sometimes it's...
Maybe it's the way you
Just
pitch it,
kidding.
Pat. You need to pitch it in a different way.
Yeah, I like that. No, Pav's great.
I'll use my hands next time.
Yeah, please. Bit more expressive.
Yeah, sorry.
But look, I mentioned before, like you've made a bit of an interesting purchase in the last few months. You bought a CryptoPunk NFT. Now, CryptoPunk was kind of like the first NFT collection to take off, and then we saw the likes of Bored Ape Yacht Club come after that, which took over a little bit of the hype. But correct me if I'm wrong. CryptoPunks have sort of maintained a little bit more value since that top out in 2021. Is that correct?
Yeah, the top NFT, 21, 22. Yeah, correct. They're, as you said, the most historical NFT. They're a form of art, they're a form of history, they're a form of culture, they're a form of value, right? And so my thesis was I had made a lot of money in NFTs this cycle, from Mad Lads on Solana way back in 23 to...
Man, they killed it.
To Ordinals in 2024. I made money on BTC Puppets, to my Pudgy Penguin trade more recently, where I got an airdrop of 100 grand Australian from just holding a big Pudgy. So I was like, look, okay, I sold that. I was like, look, I was stabled over the past couple months. I was like, look, if we are now approaching the bear market again, what am I happy to hold through that bear market, but then still have risk in the game that can outperform that over time? And so I bought a lot of Bitcoin, and I was happy in that position. And I was like, look, Ethereum's been number 2 for a very long time, and I don't really see that changing anytime soon. Even with Solana's dominance this cycle, it really hasn't eaten away with Ethereum's dominance in terms of price and value and understanding and tech, right? And there are upcoming tech advantages for Ethereum. So I was like, okay, I want to own some Ethereum, but maybe a hedge is a better opportunity. And so for me, I was like, oh, a punk. Okay, maybe that's a really good opportunity to, rather than stake Ethereum, I could hedge my value of Ethereum in my punk. And so I bought a punk a couple of weeks ago now, and it is a hedge on Ethereum. It was a new PFP for Twitter. Is a big one. Business opportunities, status, like so many things, growing my brand on Twitter, on YouTube, those sorts of things. Having a punk really puts you in a different category. You're viewed in a different way compared to maybe a random NFT that you have that's valued only at $100 or $1,000. So it definitely, and I've tremendously noticed a difference already in the past couple of weeks. So it was an investor standpoint, obviously, but it's also a brand, a business proposal that I went with that investment.
And how much did you pay for it?
I bought mine. So aesthetically, I wanted one that resembled me as best as possible, and so it is a ginger beard kind of. I think it does have a do rag, and it has a gold earring. So a little bit trendy, but hey, it was above the floor, and I like clean sort of NFTs, right? So I did spend a little bit above the floor. Shout out to Punks OTC. They've been flipping punks for a long time, and they kind of controlled the floor, but they did a great deal with me. But yeah, I bought $91,000 at the time. Damn. So it works out to be 140,000 Australian. But again, very calculated risk, as I've said, and I've been doing this a long time. I've been in crypto since 2016. So I understand the value of a punk and where that could potentially be in the future.
Did you weigh up many other options, or kind of that was pretty easy for you to make that decision?
Well, yeah, look, I did. You're right. Because I had a Pudgy, and because I repped a Pudgy for about 6 months, end of last year into this year, that was pretty much, outside of apes, I think those are your top 3: punks, Pudgy, and apes. And I was like, look, I don't like apes. What are they going to give me in the future? They were the 2022, 2021 hype. You made millions if you were probably in that ecosystem. Are they going to do that again? Probably not. They're scattered across multiple assets. Are they building games? Blah, 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 blah. I couldn't form a thesis. So I was like, okay, I've formed my thesis with a Pudgy. I'm still farming Abstract, which is their layer 2. I made a lot of money with the Pengu drop, but I sold my Pudgy. I was like, look, I don't know, again, if the bear market's coming. I'd rather de-risk that asset at this point in time. So I was like, yeah, a clear choice is a punk. So I moved some assets around and then bought the punk.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, I was wondering why you came in with a do-rag. And that all makes sense now.
I know, I'll get an earring next week, don't worry.
No, that's interesting. I like the perspective of like, you're not just speculating that it's going to go up in value and then flipping it for a profit, right? You're actually using it as part of your sort of status and growing your reputation on especially socials and stuff like that, because obviously it means a lot to this community. So no, that's a good, but like in terms of, just the regular punter out there, do you think NFTs are a good investment as opposed to, say, your altcoins, or how do you look at that?
That's a great question. I think in the right timing of markets, yes. Mm-hmm. And if you actually look more recently, NFTs haven't dumped anywhere near as bad as your favorite altcoins and your meme coins.
That's a good point. I haven't looked at that.
Yeah, if you look at floors, like Pudgies, for example, they obviously had their airdrop. They dropped from 34 ETH down to 8 ETH. They've oscillated between 8 and 10 ETH for a while now. But they haven't dropped anywhere near as bad as, say, AVAX. Sui dropped 60%, and those sorts of things. So if you're confident with your thesis, you invest in founders. I've found with NFTs is probably the best way to go about it. And if you look at Luca from Pudgy Penguins, he's just sensational with what he's done. I don't know if you guys saw, literally, like just last week or over the weekend, an ETF for Pengu and for the Pudgy ecosystem / NFT. Like, he is doing wonders for this space that no other NFT founder is. And so for me, I bought a little Pudgy for Abstract. I own a bit of Pengu for Abstract as well. But I'm glad. I'm happy to own those two assets as well for the long term, because I can just see how good he is going to be for this space.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a good shout.
Yeah. What about Bored Ape Yacht Club? Are they in toilet, or like I have not kept an eye on them at all?
I'm very confused because they finished everything off selling land, and it was notorious because gas fees like $5,000 at the time. Like, I don't know. Like,
well, they have the coin, right? They have the ape coin.
But even that has like issuance problems.
Like. Correct, and governance problems. But the ape ecosystem's doing all right. The ape chain has seen a bit of love with trading and stuff this cycle.
Am I wrong? Did they try to go down the pump.fun route?
Yeah, in a way. Yeah, they did. Like, and most chains did. Like, they tried to create a variant of it. So they did, and there's still a bit of volume over on ape chain. But again, it's a secluded community within a secluded community. They need to find what they want to do. Are they a PFP that people just hold as provenance, which they have moved up a little bit over the past couple of weeks, and they'd still hold that status? Or are they this huge ecosystem that's diving into the gaming metaverse world? Like, that's really their story. They need to find out what they want to do and execute that in the coming years.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't see them nearly as often as on Twitter anymore. Like, you do see the punks.
But think of the punks, they kind of stuck to their vanilla method. Like, they haven't tried to upsell themselves, right? So that's almost held their value for that reason.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
And if you look at their value in a bear, like, you always judge something with their value in a bear market, right? And if you look at the punk's value in a bear market, so good. So good.
Because they haven't launched like a token or a chain or anything like that.
No, and they'll never do that, right?
Just art for art.
Yeah, it's an art for art. And it's like some of these people that I've connected with in the punk world are some of the most richest people in crypto and global investors. Like, it's crazy. So that's what I mean by another opportunity that I did think about when I did buy the punk. Yeah.
What about like in the next couple of years? Do you see the NFT space shifting at all? Obviously, we've seen, like, you mentioned Pengu, and they're filing for ETFs, and they've had commercial relationships with Walmart, I think, to sell actual physical toys. Do you see it sort of like the utility of these NFTs extending beyond that, or like do you see it going a completely different direction? I know, like, everyone talks about NFTs and as like what is it?
Like tickets and stuff.
Yeah, like tickets and sort of proof of ownership.
Yeah.
Where do you sort of see that going?
Yeah, that's so hard. That's the money question, really, isn't it? Utility for an NFT. I think if you always preference art, I think that's where you got to start if you're building an NFT project. And then if you dive deeper into it, okay, well, what's the business? Like, are they creating revenue? Like look at the Pudgy ecosystem. They're sold their Pengu airdrop. They obviously had the Pudgies in Walmart for a long time. That was building a lot of revenue as well. The brand, and now Luca's going out with the ETF. So that fundamentally as a business is fantastic. You can look at Azuki's, for example. They go down the massive anime sort of storyline, building a brand, potentially movies, that sort of stuff. So if they fundamentally have something within their business, I think definitely it's worthwhile. But in terms of utility, I actually don't know. I think in-game assets, if you look at COD, you look at Fortnite, right? It's in-game assets that will dominate, and even like Minecraft and all those sorts of things, Roblox, like, it's in-game assets, right? So an NFT as an in-game asset probably makes a lot of sense. Like, and if you can create a market within that, and I think GTA6 will be very interesting.
Is that confirmed, but that they're doing stuff?
Don't know, but it is. I've heard rumors about AVAX being implemented in some way, whether they have NFTs or crypto-orientated sort of stuff, or whether it's they create their own crypto market within it. That's the question.
Because that's like, I've thought about this like quite a bit recently, because I have been thinking, like, NFTs, no one's talking about it. Surely this is the time to start looking at them.
Yeah.
And even then I'm thinking, all right, well, right now there's already player, like, tradable sort of environments that you can go, like, buy items, let's say on like Steam or something for any of these sort of games.
Correct.
But there's no way to swap one game's item for another game's item. So what if there was a way to tokenize your asset here, tokenize that asset over there, and it's like just like a marketplace, like a clearinghouse. User doesn't know it's NFTs that are maybe creating that transaction, but it's like that new intermediary that gets spun. It like fixes the problem and connects these different economies together.
That's a great idea. I like that idea. As a gamer and someone that enjoys gaming, I think that's a great idea.
Because then there'd be arbitrages between, this game's the assets in this game are worth more right now. So it creates like a reason for people to go play that, right?
Yeah, I agree. And outside that, like NFTs, I think art still remains just probably the most sort of utility-based aspect of it. If you ask, I used to speak to my good friend Zenica, like he's an art collector, and a lot of these punks, they're all art collectors, and Sam Spratt had that mask that came out a couple of weeks ago that did really well. Like it was the best sort of mint and then follow-up price action on an NFT project that we've seen in years. So I think, if you have good founders, you have a status around it with art or historical relevance like a punk, or they have actual utility like the Pudgy ecosystem, then yes, I think NFTs could be around, but I don't think a lot of NFT projects will last, unfortunately.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Love that. Have any final questions?
No, I think we sort of both was like everyone's obviously quite bearish right now, and I like that you've got the same sort of approach. Like now's the time to be sort of ears up, look for opportunity. Risk is still high, but there's ways to take risk measured, steps into the market right now. I feel I've got like my watch list is just, for me, it's more about refining my watch list now. Look at what's getting the most amount of sponsorship from bulls right now. And it's very interesting that you're talking about like the Solana sort of ecosystem. Like I've sort of am noticing the same thing as well. Like a lot of the bounces that we're seeing, there is those utilities in the Solana ecosystem, especially anything with an ETF narrative. I feel like there's definitely demand, a lot of front running demand right now. Like I saw Bonk the other day, it's up 22%. Even Doge was rallying quite nicely as well. Again, for me, it just speaks volumes that meme coins, they're not going to be dead. If anything, the SEC clarity, it just made me more excited.
Yes.
Like that's something that I think a lot of people have just missed the boat on, in a sense that they may make it potential. We were talking about this like 2 podcasts ago. Like, what if the meme coin ETFs get greenlit first because they're have the most clarity from a legislative angle?
You can't really claim that they're unregistered securities, right? With like some of the layer ones, Solana, Cardano.
It's not been ironed out. What are they? Are they a software? Are they a security?
Exactly. Whereas meme coins is pretty clear.
Squared away. Yeah. It's interesting times. I'm excited.
But exactly. If you look at, you keep your thesis simple with meme coins, I think that's the best way to go about it. Like we just spoke about earlier with those Twitter trends, those did really well, right? If you look at the most performing assets off the lows, it's Filecoin. And it's just so simple because it's just such a simple AI native, but a very simple meme, right?
Yeah. It's got the mind. Yeah, the collective mind is attracted to something called Filecoin.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's just funny.
Speaking of, have you picked up any like low cap gems in the last few weeks?
Yeah, so we've been printing a lot of money over the past 2 weeks in GTG. A lot of low cap utility tokens. So I'll share one. PVS. It's a sort of low cap rendering AI project, very similar to Render actually, which is worth about 1.9 billion in market cap at the moment. And this PVS, we got it at about 3.6 million. It ran to 18 million a couple of days ago, and it's sitting around 10 to 12 million at the moment. And so I've been buying a lot of that and then diving deeper into sort of like AI utility plays, but then also, GameFi plays or other utility-based tokens rather than the meme coins at the moment. So if you can learn to trade both, and that's probably the greatest advice I can always give, be open to trading new opportunities, new chains always. Follow liquidity, follow volume, follow sentiment, and then you can make every day an opportunity. Because then during fearful times, there's still many things that you can be doing. Farming airdrops, trading low time frames, whatever it is, learning new skills. That's probably the greatest sort of advice I could.
Well said, mate. Well said. All right, well, we might leave it there. Thank you so much, Greeny, for coming on again.
You're welcome.
Make sure to check out GTG, Greeny's trading group.
Correct.
We'll put it in the show notes as well. So, but yeah, we'll catch you again soon.
Easy. Thanks for having me, Evans.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.